The history of Western architecture. Architecture, the art of building, is perhaps the best example of the partnership and basic identity of a fine and useful art, beauty and utility, form and function. A building, whether a temple, church, factory, office complex, exhibition hall, or domestic dwelling, must demonstrate the solution of the practical problems associated with its purpose. In addition, the building must show the careful manipulation of structural and ornamental materials used to express aesthetic, cultural, or symbolic ideas. The primary concern of the architect is the definition and articulation of exterior space and the spanning and enclosure of interior space. The moment a square or circle has been described on the ground, one area has been physically and intellectually separated from another, and the architectural process has begun. As the architect spans the space, on the ground as with a wall or road, or in the air as with an arch or bridge, he encounters not only the complex technical problems of the craft, but aesthetic factors as well. Materials must be molded with an eye for the proportions of masses and voids, for the interaction of qualities, textures, colors, and capacities of these materials, for the harmonious relationship of open windows and doors to closed wall space, for the control and flow of lighting, and above all, for architecture in action, that is, for the shelter, comfort, and movement of the people who will be living, working, and carrying on their various activities within the building. The history of architecture may be read in the progressive changes in the solution of structural problems. The transition from the most primitive shed roof and simple truss construction to the vertical posts or columns supporting horizontal beams or lintels covers the period from the beginning of civilization through ancient Greek culture. Greek architecture also formalized many structural and decorative elements into three of the classical orders: Ionic, Doric, and Corinthian, which, to a greater or lesser extent, have influenced architectural style since that time. The Romans exploited the arch, vault, and dome, and made broader use of the load-bearing masonry wall, and in the late medieval period, the pointed arch, ribbing, and pier systems gradually emerged. At this point, all the problems of brick and stone masonry construction had been solved, and little innovation except in decoration was achieved until the Industrial Revolution. Not until the 19th century, with the advent of cast iron and steel construction, did a new architectural age dawn and higher, broader, and lighter buildings become possible. With the advances of 20th century technology, new structural methods such as cantilevering received more extensive use. Building materials evolved in much the same way from simple, often perishable materials such as primitive grass thatch, stick frame, and wattle and daub to more durable materials such as clay, adobe, brick, stone, and cement. The modern use of reinforced and pre-stressed ferroconcrete and of various metals, including steel, copper, and aluminum, as well as of glass and structural fabrics and plastics, has led not only to more daring structural innovations, but also to much beauty through the realization of the inherent qualities of such materials and their use in novel decorative schemes. In postmodern architecture, the classical orders have been reintroduced as one of a number of contrasting design methods, so that late 20th century architecture attempted to include historical references in its design approach and was characterized by a new aesthetic pluralism. This series considers the history of architecture in the West from about 2000 BC. For a discussion of the architecture of ancient Egypt, see Egyptian Arts and Architecture, Ancient.